All right, all right. Mark Sulimirski, the man, the myth. He's here.
I'm
It's
here,
awesome.
baby.
It's awesome. I love it. Yeah. So these guys are all. I think you've maybe chatted with one or two of them. These are all freshmen, sophomore athletes at Wesleyan, soccer players, rowers, and basketball players. Actually, it turns out, and they're all interested in business and So I think, and we've had a number of guests who are kind of my vintage, and we have had some guests who are closer to your vintage. But I think you're probably one of the younger guests, and so I think it's really great for them to kind of get from the horse's mouth some of the stuff that you've done, which they're aspiring to do. So I'm really psyched you're here.
Perfect.
So
Thank
I
you.
thought we'd like start. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, thanks for having me. Let's do it.
Yeah. So I thought we'd just start at the beginning. They're all athletes. Very, very serious athletes. I know you were an athlete, at least in high school, and just what was your sport, and how did that kind of what did it teach you that you carried over into college and into your business life?
Yeah. So I primarily played soccer growing up, but I had a brief stint as a rower in high school for a couple of years. And I mean, growing up, I played pretty much any sport. And I guess the common theme throughout all of it was kind of just figuring out your schedule. I'd say, like, especially as you get older, you have more demands, whether it be school, relationships, college planning, you name it. And for me, it was really great to build a regimen over time. And I think in the context of soccer and rowing specifically, also understanding how to interact and play well with others. I think like in the rowing context, you can crab very quickly if you don't jive with the entire boat. With soccer, same type of dynamic. If you don't get along with others, that will come back to bite you pretty quickly. So I think just always having that type of team player mentality and balancing your schedule for me were the biggest two things I learned.
So you went to the Carroll School of Business at BC. So why did you go there?
I'd say when I was applying to college, I was pretty unsure of what I wanted to do post school, but I knew I wanted to do something in the business realm. And I think there are plenty of great programs out there. And for me, when I visited BC, I fell in love with the school. And I think when I spoke to alum from BC, they always praised the Carroll School just for kind of the broad education. What I mean by that is at BC, you have a core curriculum. So think philosophy, theology, econ, math, you name it. But then when you're also in the business school, you have a full core curriculum across different business units. So think marketing, strategy, finance, you name it. For me, I thought, okay, I'll have 4 years. I'll get to learn any and everything. And then from there, I can pick for specialization.
So I know we've talked about it a little bit before, but when you're at BC, um, you worked for my friend Woody for a little while. Just how did that come about, and like what was it like, and like why was it important for you?
I think for me, the most important part was just being able to spend time reading. Like, I think there's a difference between classroom education and actually seeing it done in the real world. And working for Woody, I mean, thankfully he took me on because I probably provided negative value to him during that summer.
Explain who Woody was and what he was doing.
Yeah, so Woody was a seasoned finance professional. He was kicking off a search. So looking at different industries, really trying to figure out what type of business do I want to buy and operate. I like vertical software. I want to go deep on this. Let's talk to any and every owner out there. And the goal will be I will buy this business, replace the seller, and I believe I can be a better operator long term. That, at the highest level, is how I understood it. And for me, what that meant was understanding what does a search fund model look like? How long does it take to find a company? Once you find a company, how do you convince them to actually sell to you? And I think for me, it was a heavy research summer. So reading any type of research report, speaking to founders, actually trying to build a model, which probably didn't go too well for me that year. But over time, I got that skill. But at least just trying to understand, like, okay, I've learned a little bit in college. How does this apply in the real world? And I think that was a great starting point to at least piquing my curiosity of what else is out there.
Were you actually was he asking you to produce reports, or like what was the work product, or were you really kind of just out there fending on for yourself, hanging out?
I'd say a mix. I think, especially given I was, I believe, a freshman in college, I probably couldn't produce any type of materials that would be of value to him at that point. But if he was ever doing something, he would have his copy, and then I would try and make mine. And then after we'd go through, and he'd actually kind of point me like, okay, you did this part wrong. You actually went in the right direction for this piece. Let me explain why and how this works. So I think he was very helpful with paying it forward, of taking the time to educate me. But yeah, he's running a full-time search, so you can only spend so much time getting the freshman intern up to speed on everything.
And so after that, you decided to pursue investment banking, is that right?
That's correct.
And so like what was just explain the path from there?
For getting the internship, or
Yes, yes. Deciding what banks you're interested in, and like how you went about getting the internship.
yeah, of course. So I mean, the core of it all is networking. Like that to me is by far the most important point. And I'd say that is a function of talking to any and everyone. So people who are just out of college, who just interned there, people who are just starting full time, all the way up to your 50, 60-year-olds who are running the actual division. And it's a pure education game, at least for the first few months, because the reality of not being in banking is you're more than likely to ask a stupid question, something that's like, what do you do on a daily basis? I'd say that is the most hated question by any banker because every day is different. It's very volatile. And you get that same question from every student pretty much every day. And for me, it's like, okay, what are the industries out there? What's the difference between a product and coverage group? What is the difference between a bulge bracket bank and a boutique bank? And over time, I started to figure out, okay, these are the personas or personalities that I really jive with right now. Let me continue with these conversations. I'd say most people, when you're looking into banking, you're told pretty early on you have to start networking now, if not 6 months ago. So for me, I was like, okay, I'm going to get a few touch points out there. And over the next 3 to 6 months, I'll check in again. It's not like I have to do bi-weekly check-ins, but just making sure they remember my name, update them on what I'm doing, and then also see what's new in their world. And then when I'd be in New York for the summer or just visiting, I'd go to their office, get in front of them, buy them a coffee if I could. So, like in the context of UBS, I probably networked with the hiring staff for BC for over 12 months by the time it came to interview season. By the time I got to my final round interview, the two guys who are interviewing me, I've had 4 coffee chats with each of them. So I didn't have to do the who are you? Give me the 30-second spiel. They're like, "Oh, Mark, we know you. We'll just go through a couple technicals and then we're good to go." And for me, that is a huge value add compared to just trying to push a resume through a random hire view and expect you to get pulled. Because the reality is there are thousands of kids applying. It's that type of hustle culture that really gets you there.
Yeah, we've talked about networking a lot in the class, and also like the concept of drip campaign, like basically have like a spreadsheet with all your contacts as you're building them out, and like keep track. Obviously, you don't want to pester people, but you want to keep yourself top of mind for them in a way that builds that relationship.
Yeah,
Um, and also the face to face, like you said, like if you gotta like just show up at their office and ask them when they have time for a 10-minute cup of coffee, there's no downside to that, right? And
like
and it's hugely beneficial as opposed to even a Zoom, it's very different.
completely different feel.
And
And I
so, okay.
I think the one other thing I wanted to call out is right after working for Woody, I had one summer between that and my banking experience. I had worked for a fund called ZBS Partners, and it's similar to a search model, but more of a buy and build strategy. And I think to what we were just talking about of getting in someone's face and showing up, that was the main thing I learned at that internship of, okay, I worked for this fantastic guy, Jake Sloan. Anytime he was trying to look at a business, he'd fly there immediately. He would literally text them, "Hey, I'm actually here today. We should get coffee," and would book the flight on the spot. And it was that type of like relentless hustle that set him apart and truly made him a success. But it was that type of lesson. It's like, okay, if I take this hustle and apply it to anything, I can beat anyone because just sending a bland email is not really that much effort, right? Just actually showing up really differentiates you.
So why did it pick UBS?
I think for me, I just got along with the people the most throughout all my networking. And I think at a certain point, like it's kind of an arbitrary decision. Like unless you are angling for a very specific group or a very specific mandate, I personally like the idea of, okay, I want to be at a bulge bracket. I want to see what's out there. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people going through every year in this program. And I was also looking at where are the exit opportunities after. If I'm not going to do banking, do I go corporate route, private equity, search fund? And what I found is there were so many different variations of it that I got excited and very comfortable with what I could do afterwards.
So when you actually went for your summer internship, did you feel like you had a good handle on what the real job was going to be like, or did you have absolutely no clue?
Oh, I had no idea. No idea. I think these days you can educate yourself, but there's a difference between knowing what the work is versus actually doing the work.
All
And
all I remember, dude, is like meeting you for coffee, and you're like a ghost of yourself, like literally. Like I don't
yeah,
know what the hell was going on, but you're pale, you're thin, you're like,
you didn't notice the Ozempic?
no. It's like where's the daylight, man? Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
So
I
just
mean,
describe what the actual analyst experience is like for you.
yeah, I mean it's chaos, and I guess the best of ways. And so, like for example, you would be staffed on anywhere from like 4 to 8 things at a time. Some could be live, some could be just pitching type of mandates, and anything from deck creation, building out a model, dealing with any type of external stakeholders or cross-functional work. So it's like wake up in the morning, get to the office, send out a few emails, start working on a deck, have another meeting, get follow-up comments because there's an even more urgent meeting, so you have to reprioritize. And this goes on throughout the entire day where it's constantly shifting. It's not like I can block out, at least in my case, 6 hours of just doing uninterrupted work. It's like, no, I'm constantly shifting. So to your point about me being super pale in the summer, because I was still learning everything, I probably took a bit longer than a full-time analyst or a seasoned banker. So my nights would be that much longer. And for me, when it came to group selection, most times at banks, when you get like the internship or full-time role, there's a networking phase where you actually pick the group that you're going towards. Many, like you'll see the full range across the board, but for me, I thought, okay, I'm going to go for industrials because I've heard it's the most intense, they have the most deal flow, and I really like the people that I spoke to. And I mean, double-edged sword, of course, but I think it was a fantastic learning experience. The downside was my work-life balance was horrible compared to some of the other groups at UBS. So in retrospect, yeah, maybe I should have chosen a different group and I would have liked it for a bit longer. But I think for the technical skills and kind of like stress management and understanding how to work with different stakeholders who are very demanding, it was totally worthwhile.
So what I don't know. So you were there for 2 years, right?
Hmm.
And so does anything stand out in terms of like cool stuff that you did or deal that you worked on, or was it all just kind of like a blackout?
I'd say one of my favorite deals, I was working on a SPAC back when SPACs were the rave. And I think at the time it was just me and a managing director. And I think it was a very intimidating thing for me to just be just one off with a managing director. And looking back on it, I think it was like the first time it was like real one-off responsibility. I'm the only one holding the pen. There's no filtering a quality of my product. And I'd say it was definitely one of the more stressful events, but I definitely learned the most in terms of challenging myself of, okay, did I actually give 100% to this work product? Or am I just waiting for an associate to review it and give me quick comments here? And it was like, even though it was a rather compressed timeline, I love going deep on like the automotive space and then actually drafting an S1 document and then actually being in the meeting with the CEOs that we're working with on it. And I think that was like the biggest inflection point in my experience at UBS.
Yeah, maybe just comment. One thing that's come up with other bankers we talked about, maybe just your experience of it, is the difference between like being an intern or being in school, where like you know you might hand in a paper with some typos and get an A minus instead of an A, and being a banker on a deal where like you're building a model and the numbers are going to go into some S1 somewhere. and mistakes of making a mistake, and the kind of trade-off also of speed versus accuracy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a funny balance because I think especially as an intern, I was so focused on speed and very quickly you learn it's no, you should probably get it right first and then you'll get faster. And it's like, oh, right, that makes more sense. And so I mean over time it's like, okay, yeah, definitely learn some lessons along the way of major screw ups. But I think it's like the times that you failed that you remember the most. So now it's like there are certain things that happened to me or where I screwed up in banking. Whereas like I was working on something today, I was like, oh no, I remember making this mistake 6 years ago. Not going to do that today. So I think it's a work in progress for anyone, but I think it's just understanding like accuracy is better than speed by all costs.
Yeah. Well, the stakes are so high.
Exactly.
Getting one number wrong can cause, all kinds of problems. So, so when you were trying to think about what you're going to do after banking, what was your thought process?
I mean, I saw the full range. I mean, truthfully, I wasn't too sure at the start. I was just like, I'm just going to try and learn as much as possible. But I think the thing that frustrated me most about just the banking private equity industry was how early recruiting happened. Like for me, banking recruiting started my junior year, and now I think it's freshman or sophomore year, which is absurd. For private equity recruiting, when I was the week I was starting my full-time role in the bank, buy-side recruiting kicked off to the point that you had to skip part of work to go interview. And that to me was just absurd. It's like, okay, I've done 3 months of this job before, but you're expecting me to interview for something that I have no idea what I'm doing. And I wouldn't start for 2 years. So it was like, yes, I'd like to do this in the future, but I don't like the process. So I'm going to wait. Um, Corporate, I was back and forth on, and then startups, you could go either way. But for me, I thought, okay, if I'm going to do something, might as well do something different. And I think the power of the network is so understated. And what I mean by that is when I was about like a year and a half into banking, a former UBS colleague of mine had reached out. He said, hey, I just started at Disney Plus. We just launched in the US. It's me and the CFO, and we're looking for a senior analyst. I've interviewed 25 people. No one's up to par. Would you be willing to join? And it's like, okay, I did industrials banking. Why would I go to a streaming service at Disney? This seems a bit off. And did a very compressed process, thought, I'll see how it is. And at the end of it, I came to the conclusion, I was like, when else in my life am I going to say I could be part of a founding team of a streaming service that's obviously going to be a behemoth? I'll have the security of a multi-billion dollar corporation behind me, and it still has this startup element. So I thought I got a few different things, and I mean, looking back, I don't regret it in the slightest. I think when I was debating taking it, I had very many camps in terms of if I should not. But either way, I'm very happy about it.
So, what was your life like at Disney compared to your life at UBS?
It really shifts from external facing work for clients to internal strategy. I think, especially in the early days of Disney, it was just like the Wild West. It's like there were no real financial models, there were no subscription models. So it's like, okay, how many subscribers are we going to get day one? I think everyone guessed 1 million. They ended up getting 10 million. It's like, okay, well, clearly we're off here. We have to figure out budgeting for the next year, the next 5 years. How do we do this? And for me, I really enjoyed the fact that no one really knew what the right answer was. Like I think in banking, typically there's a standard format of what you're proposing, what you're doing, and you're working with an investor who is also very well in tune with what they're trying to accomplish. With Disney, it's like, okay, we have a shared North Star of what we want to accomplish, but we need to figure out how to get there. So a lot of my work stemmed from building an actual model of forecasting subscribers for every single country we launched in. How do we negotiate with different billing partners? How much do we spend on marketing? How do I think about content, the algorithm? Like, how do we think about the spend behind the tech costs on that side? So for me, it was a diversification from not just a financial play, but how do you actually think about the context of operations and scaling something from 0 to 1 and then 1 to 200 million?
So, who are you reporting to, and like, Who are you? Who? How are you presenting this information, the strategy information that you're generating?
Yeah, so originally I worked directly for like a director of finance who kind of oversaw a few different divisions within the finance org. And back then, I think I was the third hire of like the Disney Plus finance org. By the a couple years in, I ended up creating this team called Tactical Opportunities, which is effectively like a chief of staff role and team for the CFO of Disney Streaming. So we worked across every single business unit. If there was a gray area that like the board wanted to explore and they didn't want to allocate other resources, we would be the first team to go address that. And that really stemmed from getting different types of talent from consulting, banking, startups, you name it, to have very different opinions, to never agree on anything, and to try to at least be as contrarian as possible. So what that looks like in terms of reporting, it's technically work for the CFO, but also need to get buy-in from the president of Disney Plus, the president of Hulu, the CFO of Hulu, the CFO of Disney Plus, working with parks on cross-functional work. I don't think there was ever a real clear reporting structure. The main thing was all about you have to get cross-functional buy-in to do anything at a corporation of this size.
So, what's your view on how they're doing now? Actually,
I mean, I think the product's great. I think Disney inherently has the largest intellectual property of content in the world, and it's great. Like clearly, it pays dividends for them. And the main thing we always talked about was kind of like the flywheel of Disney. So it's like, sure, you have Disney Plus, but you also have the parks, you have the distribution side of things, and it's not like they're going anywhere anytime soon.
right,
It's a
right,
behemoth. I think it's just like if you're comparing this to a Ramp or Palantir or any type of like sexy new startup that's coming out, it's not going to be that. It's a legacy media business.
yeah.
And I think back in the day, it used to be, we're going to reward you for the number of subscribers you get. So all type of financial profit logic kind of goes out the window. It's like, okay, let's just make it as cheap as possible. And then right after COVID, there's this big inflection where it became, okay, actually, you need to be profitable. You lost $1.5 billion last year. You should probably fix this. Like, okay, now this becomes a price war. And it's effectively just like whoever is biggest and has the most cash balance has the advantage. But I think inevitably it'll become a consolidation play. Like I personally will not pay for more than two streaming services at a time. Maybe some
Right.
people will, but I think once you lose a COVID stipend or like a little $1,200 check to your debit card, I don't know. I'm not big on streaming, or I try to pull back on TV just because I was so invested in it for so many years.
So, where do you go from Disney? What was your next move?
So after Disney, I actually returned to ZBS Partners. So that small shop that I interned for back in college, they ended up having some tremendous success with the very first roll-up they did. And then they since raised a formal fund, and I was working across three different buy and build strategies.
And can you talk about what those were?
Yeah, of course. So uh, the first one was Crete Professionals Alliance, and that is an accounting-focused buy and build strategy. So think local CPAs across the US, highly fragmented market. We started buying many of them across the US, and by creating a shared back office, you could find economies of scale, cross-selling abilities, you name it. And that one is doing tremendously well at scale. The second one that I really spent a lot of time on was called Rocket Youth Brands. And that one's a youth sports roll-up. So think like after school volleyball clinics, swimming, lacrosse, pretty much you name it. The idea being, okay, you have so many kids in the US who need to be in sports or want to get outside, especially because we have devices like these on us at all times. As a parent, there is a big worry about just having that type of neck from looking at a phone at all times. And it's like, okay, what if we bought different sports clinics or recreational facilities in a certain area? And then you can immediately start cross-selling, making all the signups on the same type of tech platform, standardizing pricing, doing bulk discounts. And that one for me was very exciting just because I love sports growing up. So it's a lot more fun to talk about sports with a volleyball coach.
So let's stop there. So, like, just so these guys understand what you're talking about. So, what was the strike zone of the kind of business you wanted to buy, size of business you wanted to buy?
Yeah, of course. I like to think of it as micro cap. And what I mean by that is like $1 to $5 million businesses. Very
In
small.
revenue, in revenue,
Uh, Revenue probably closer to like 5 to 10, just depends on like the type.
one to five of EBITDA.
1 to 5 of EBITDA, but I'd go as low as 400,000 of EBITDA. So you see the full range. What I was mainly looking for is just a very well-run business, great owners who are hungry to continue growing and are at least relatively stable on a cash flow basis.
And so how much were you looking to pay on a multiple basis?
I'd say the multiples, you'll see the full range. It's like once you go north of 1 million of EBITDA, or in this context, let's say north of 5 to 10 million of revenue, there will be a jump in the multiple. So for what we do at ZBS, you want to start as small as possible and remain in that area just because it gets pricier and pricier. And to really achieve the economies of scale, you need to buy a lot of them. I don't want to buy a $50 million asset because I'm going to be paying an arm and a leg for it. And then what value can actually bring to it.
So are you like literally like just calling up companies trying to convince them to sell to you?
Yeah. And I think it's a mix. Like you can do automated outbound for emails, calling, use external brokers. But normally, like once we partnered with a few different companies, you could actually get a referral process going because most people in any industry, once you partner with one and prove yourself, they want to refer all of their friends to you as well. So like from a coaching perspective, partner with one great volleyball asset, they immediately started referring us two, three, four, and then they have more referrals. And then slowly but surely you start spreading across the US. And I think that's why I really like the ZBS model because it wasn't a typical private equity strategy of we're going to buy your business and slash everyone, raise prices and call it a win. For us, it's no, you have skin in the game too. What if we could just automate your back office for you, get enough people in this type of partnership model, and then eventually when we sell the platform, there will be that multiple inflection because we are a collection of, let's say, 50 different sports assets, all very small, but all very local, all very independent, and share a back office. Same payroll, accounting, benefits, you name it. And for me, it was like that beautiful blend of entrepreneurship with private equity, but not the negative connotation of private equity.
So just to be clear, and I'm not sure how much these guys will really understand it, but like let's try. So when you're buying an asset, when you're buying a company, how are you financing it? You're giving them cash, you're using debt, and you're also using equity of the parent company, correct?
So that's where we differentiate. We would fund 100% equity as opposed to the typical search model where you would put any debt or use a seller note. And the reason for that is we wanted to make it crystal clear that we were putting our money where our mouth was. And I think, like, sure, from a returns perspective, not putting any debt on the business technically ruins the return on an absolute basis. But for us, we thought, if we try to convince someone to sell a business that they built for the past 20 years, we want to show that we have full confidence in what we're doing. And it's like that type of differentiator that really made us stand out when it came to like a bidding process, or at least trying to prove to them why we're great partners.
So I'm sorry. So you're paying cash for 100% of their equity, or you're giving them some cash and some stock in the parent company?
Yeah, so I guess, specific detail would be we'd be giving them cash up front for a majority portion. That just depends on how much they're willing to sell, but let's say on average 70%.
Right.
The remaining 30%, we don't have them roll it at like the parent company. They keep it at their local brand level. So I like to
Okay.
think of it as like an eat what you kill model, which means
Okay.
they don't have to deal with any of the other people that we partner with, but they get the benefit of us partnering with so many people technically.
So then so how do they get the benefit of the multiple expansion of the parent company?
So then let's say in 5 years, we build this thing to $500 million of revenue. Inherently, the multiple that that platform would trade at is larger. And if we sell this platform to, let's say, an Apollo or a Blackstone or any type of larger fund, they'd be buying the parent company. So for us, we get a much higher multiple. And then what we do is we pass through a multiple to the local guys too.
I
So,
see. So
so
you so
let's
you'd buy. So if you say this to say use rough math. So like if you're buying at 5x, you buy the 70% at 5x, you leave 30% behind, you build this big thing that then ultimately you sell at 10x and having like built a lot more absolute EBITDA as well. And then you buy out the guy remaining 30% at 10x
Correct. Yeah,
based on whatever his EBITDA is then, which is presumably higher.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Cool. Yeah. No, it's
So
great. It's cool.
I fell in love with it just because it's different, and I'm sure what we're talking about is probably a bit deeper than most people on this call probably want to know about. But for me, I think it's just such a cool nerdy
Yeah,
thing that
it
I don't know,
aligns everyone. Everyone's aligned, very well. So
yeah. I think just the coolest piece is like even vet clinics that we partnered with years ago, I could pick up a phone and talk to one of them still because it's a great relationship. I think
right.
that's not always the case historically with private equity transactions because
No.
most times it's a very different type of value creation strategy. So for me, I just feel good every day about what I'm doing.
So so you went to undergrad business school. You were investment banking analyst. You were in corporate finance at Disney, and now you have experience in kind of a massive roll-up strategy. Why go to business school?
It's a great question, and I still ask myself that every day. Uh,
I think we may have talked about this before.
I guess when I was still at Disney, I was debating about next steps because at the time I did not know about ZBS or did not know I'd be going to ZBS. So I had actually did all my applications thinking, I want to move into investing. I think this would be a great opportunity to take a moment to reflect a little bit on my career and to expand my network and see what else is out there. So while I was finishing at Disney, launched my applications, and then around the time I got into school, ZBS had actually reached out to me saying, "Hey, do you know anyone with pretty much like your age, this type of background, looking for this type of role?" And I was like, "What do you know? That's me. Would you take me?" And they're like, "Oh, of course, do it." And I told them I candidly will most likely be going to business school because it's something that I set out to do and I'd like to do that. Um, and I left it on great terms where they said, come learn from us for a year. If you love it, great. If you don't get into school, great, you could still stay here. And I think it just gave me a lot of optionality. So even though there are times where I question like, why am I in school right now? I really liked what I did. I think it's been exceedingly helpful to understand what else is out there and also just form some fantastic lifelong friendships that I know are just going to be some of the deepest ones of my life.
Yeah, so you were fortunate enough, no surprise to me, but fortunate enough to get into both Harvard and Stanford and business schools. And so I know that was a pretty tough decision. Why did you choose to go to Stanford?
Oh, loaded question. I can feel it. Uh, I still look back and I don't think I could have made a wrong decision. Like I think the phrase I was using was champagne problems when I was pulling my hair out trying to decide between the two. But I think especially going to undergrad in Boston, spending the past 5 years in New York, I really wanted to change of scenery, see what else is out there. And I think especially given my work on kind of like this pseudo search platform roll-up model, I thought some of the people lecturing at Stanford for me would be much more interesting. And I wasn't too sure, like, do I want to move out to California in the future? I've always talked about it, but I feel like I always say it, but I don't actually know what California is like. Maybe this is the perfect time to try that out. There's no risk, still a fantastic education compared to Harvard. And I think also what I reflected on for a while was what are the best environments for me to learn? And what became clear was I love small classroom settings. So smaller classes, much more intimate. And that is what I found at Stanford. I don't think there's any discount to Harvard, but I think it was just like the ethos of the school, what it embodied, and who I spoke to on campus at both. I think for me, it just became much more obvious. But, who knows? If I went to Harvard, maybe I'd be saying the complete same thing and just shitting on.
I'm gonna hold my tongue. I'm not gonna say anything more.
Yeah.
But what's been the best part of business school for you? Um,
I would say the relationship with professors. I think that's really stuck out to me as a difference compared to undergrad. Like I think at undergrad, it was very much like do the class, maybe go to office hours, maybe be on a first name basis with a professor, but most times it's much larger scale. Here, it's many of my professors first year, I still get coffees with. And I know I will be in touch with them. Like even if I get a job offer somewhere, I will go to them first. If I have a life question, I can go to them. It's an open door policy, and I think it's such a refreshing take, especially once you have business experience, to then be able to go into a classroom and actually relate that to what you're doing in the present, and then also actually form a real relationship with these experienced professionals. I think is fantastic.
so what are some of the things you're thinking about for your future?
Too many, too many. I mean, I think the main thing that I was focused on was what will bring me the most joy in life. And I know on one or two of the calls from this program, I've talked about the book, How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen. And I started reading that, I want to say 2 years out of college. And every year I read that just to kind of ground myself of what am I doing with this life? What are the things that I think I absolutely need and will not waver on? And what are the things that might not be that? I know that's not the best way to put it, but I think there's this constant remeasurement of what are your priorities. And when you're in college, you think it's one thing. 2 years after college, it's another thing. 5 years after college, it's another thing. And I think that's that type of evolution where I keep on thinking, okay, what will always open up the most doors for me? What are the things in work that I love the most? Who are the people I love to be around? And I think at the core of that is you are a byproduct of your surroundings, whether it be job, people, relationships. So as I'm thinking about school and everything afterwards, that's the big question. And I don't have a full answer yet. Luckily, I still have another year of school to continue reflecting.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. I mean, that's honestly like to me, like that's the most important part of this class is like trying to like hear from a bunch of different people who've done a bunch of different things or different points along their career. Like, you know, what is it that gives them the most joy and the most meaning? And like, and also that it's not from the student's perspective, it's not really what they expect. I think. When you're talking to somebody, particularly later in their career, who have like these huge resumes and achieved all this stuff, and it's not really about that, honestly. Like that doesn't turn out to be the thing that is the most meaningful and provides the most joy.
Yeah, totally.
So
And
what? So in your career so far, what are you most proud of?
I'm proud of the variety. Like I think especially in like the high finance line of work, there's a very, I guess, celebrated for better or worse structure to what the right career is many times. Like 2 years of banking, 2 years of private equity, business school, back to private equity as the VP, on to partner track, call it a day, buy my Hamptons house, sail off into the sunset. And I think even like that jump to Disney, I look back and it's like, this life could be very different today, but I feel so happy about what I've done. It's like, okay, I did the traditional high finance banking route. Then I did more like startup type of work, but at a large legacy media company. Then I started doing platform roll-ups. Now I'm at business school and I don't know what's next per se, but I think being able to draw different lessons from each of these wildly different environments from a people perspective, an actual work perspective, I think it's a pretty rare experience to get because even kids in my class, some of the most impressive backgrounds I've ever seen, and it still makes me question how they even let me in the first place. But I think it's that type of variety that Stanford definitely celebrates. Uh,
Yeah.
and there are just so many lessons out there from all of it that it's always top of mind.
So what's the mistake you made that you would advise the students not to make?
Um, the one I have like this little journal I carry around in my pocket nearly every day with like random lessons or things to always remind myself. But on the first page, I have comparison is the thief of joy. And I think those are words to live by. I think especially in college, because you're all at the same level, you're all thinking about careers at the same time. it's very easy to start comparing yourself to someone who either has more money than you, more opportunity, or have more resources, or like you can go a million directions with this, whether it be athletic ability, smarts. And for me, it finally clicked after a while. I was like, okay, why don't I just measure against myself yesterday as opposed to the person who's next to me today? And I think once I really reminded myself of that on a daily basis, it completely changed my work product. Not just like in a corporate setting, but also relationships in life, even my relationship with you. Like everyone, it's like, okay, this is how I was yesterday. Can I be a little bit better today? And I think it's that type of anchor that just grounds me every day in terms of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time talking about growth mindset, which is exactly that. It's like trying to figure out how to be your best version of yourself, and absolutely doesn't matter whether you win or how, how you compare to anyone else. And often, also in that mindset, something else you talked about, which is that that failure and constructive criticism is how you get better. It's not so actually like winning and praise, getting patted on the head is actually not all that helpful.
Yeah.
It's really about like the repetitions where you put yourself in a position where you know you're probably going to fail, but you take a risk. That's how you actually level up and continue to level up in terms of getting to that highest version of yourself. Which I'm honestly, as I've watched you, like that's what I really admire too, because you've always found a new place to like go fail.
I'm glad someone said it.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, that's the whole beauty of it. And like, look where you are now. So with these guys, like, so what's kind of like tangible stuff you'd advise them to be doing over the next 6 to 12 months as they try and explore what to do with their their career as they're trying to finish out their college career as well, and like manage being super high level athletes.
Yeah, sadly, I probably can't bring too many learnings to the athletic front, mainly because I don't think any college would ever try to recruit me for any sport. But uh, I'd say, especially in the context of just life and career, it's always worth just networking. Like, I'm always going to go back to that, even in the context of banking recruiting. Like, having a conversation with someone is the best thing you can ever do. Right? It's like you can use any type of ChatGPT, LLM type of model to at least go deep on a specific subject. And I think now we are seeing this big kind of leveling in terms of information access. But on top of that, you should also understand and hear directly from the people who are working in a specific line of work. Or like what I used to do is spend time going on LinkedIn and finding people at like that king position that I wanted to be in and figure out what are the paths to get there and then start going backwards from there. Like, okay, he's 25 years into his career. What about the person who's 2 years into their career? Figure out any type of combination and permutation out there. Figure out what are the traits that really stand out to you. And it's like you might not have the perfect answer today, but if like I have a full Excel model, and not even a model, it's literally just tabs of people I've spoken to over the years and any type of vertical. And I try to just keep tabs on it and figure out, okay, what else is out there? So when I go back to like my journal and just look at, okay, what did I do this year? What am I trying to work on? I can easily map out how do I match to the people that I need to speak to right now. I think it's that type of like growing the network and just staying on top of it that for me is just exceedingly helpful.
Yeah, I think two big themes for us in the course are exactly that, the networking and frankly learning how to do it effectively. Because obviously you don't want to like try and network and like give a bad impression.
Right.
And then the second is like frankly how to communicate. Like how do you tell a story about yourself in a way that's effective, which
Yeah.
is super important and like takes a lot of work to get to that point. So.
Yes.
Anyhow, so we're gonna do a little fire round here. Because we went a little over time.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of the best way to answer it. Candidly, as a banker, you will get so many inbounds from students, whether it be from your alma mater or from others. And it's the templates get pretty easy to call out, especially now that you have like a chat GPT to draft, like, oh, what do I write out to a banker? It's like, okay, well, this is the least thoughtful. I could see the M dashes everywhere. I know this is automatic, or he's just copy pasting and spamming everyone at our group. And I think spending time just trying to understand who you're actually reaching out to is very helpful. It's like if you find someone in a specific sector at a bank for a certain number of years who had recently switched from another, provide that context. Like, hey, I was going deep on this. I'm curious about like the difference between this and this skill or this transaction that you might have worked on. Like at least just going one layer deeper than you think you need to makes you stand out immediately. And it's, of course, like cold emailing is one of the most frustrating processes that I can imagine. Like it is draining, taking too much time to do so, and most times the hit rate is too low. But it's like, okay, if I spend 5 extra minutes and educate myself on this person, why should they want to speak to me? And then on top of that, it's like, okay, there are so many connections out there. Figure out your path to get to that person.
Yeah,
Does that answer your question?
yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Oh, before first summer. I mean, I feel like there were so many mistakes during that period. I don't even know where to start. But uh, I think the other piece that I really picked up on between Woody and between Jake at ZVS were being proactive as opposed to reactive. And I think that really clicked once I got into banking. So, what I mean by that is once you are brand new to any type of firm or whatever type of work you're doing, most times you're not sure what you're supposed to do. You're waiting for someone to tell you. And, like, sure, when you're first starting out, you can do that. But normally the best performers are the ones thinking one step ahead of what do I think they're going to ask of me right now? How can I be better prepared to actually help them? And I think that's where you see a big inflection point between intern to analyst and then analyst to associate. And every level up, the best performers are the ones who are thinking a step ahead of how can I be more proactive to make my manager's life that much easier? So it's okay, like even in rowing, it's like you could find any relation to sports, to life, to relationship. But of taking that extra 5 minutes to think, okay, how can I actually get ahead of this? Even if it's like not a final product, but at least having it top of mind will give you so much more of an edge in terms of communication strategy, work product quality, and actually having thoughts. Because the reality in a work setting versus classroom is cold calling is real. Someone will point at you and say, what do you think? Like, are you thinking or not? And that's like a big thing that stands out. Like I've been caught like a deer in a headlight. And I'm like, oh, I probably should have been thinking about the very logical next step to this conversation. It's like, okay, now when I go in, it's like, okay, this is where I think it's going to go. It could go these three directions. Let me have a few bullet points of what I think should be happening next. It's taking that type of initiative that really stands out.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Oh, uh, I'd say trust is built through time and consistency. And I think that rings true for pretty much everything. So in rowing, making sure you're showing up on time, actually putting in the work with everyone. If I have to hit a certain erg time, making sure I'm dieting properly to make sure I can survive that type of work. In soccer, same type of thing, making sure I'm showing up mentally ready for a game or making sure I'm working on my fundamentals with everyone and not slacking off during drills. The same thing applies with work, making sure you show up and actually demonstrating that you're there for the long haul. Because if I give bad work quality, why should they trust me? Sure, you're gonna screw up a few times, but if I keep on showing up and just getting that like the 0.1% better every day, there's so much trust and that pays dividends for life. Same thing with relationships and any other facet of your life. Favorite athlete? Ooh.
The first one pops to mind.
Oh. I mean, I'm picking MJ. I'm gonna be cheesy. I'm going to MJ.
Oh, really? Jeez. These are all soccer players, dude. Messi. That's the answer. But
Well,
go
I
ahead.
mean, that's obvious, but
All
yeah.
right.
I mean, I feel like that right there is a question that I'll probably continue asking myself every single day because it keeps on changing. But
Yeah.
I think the shortcut route to this would be, okay, you have one day to live. What are the things that like are most important to you? Like the people to see, the things that you wish you did. And of course, that's probably an extreme example because I think people would do some crazy stuff if they only had one day to live. But it's like thinking about like, okay, if tomorrow like this part of my life got shut off, is that necessary or do I absolutely need it? And I don't normally like to deal in absolutes, but sometimes it's very helpful to at least narrow in on like what are the core themes or areas that I truly prioritize versus say that I prioritize, but it's not actually core to who I am slash what I value.
Yeah.
So already discussed in the sense of, and you talked about this too in terms of the comparison game, but like, what are the things that I'm doing because that are external facing and what are internal facing? Meaning that am I doing something because like I'm trying to like please somebody else? Or am
Yeah.
I doing it because truly in my heart of hearts, it is like who I am and what I care about and what makes me happy?
Yeah.
And so for me, like that's always a super important question because if I'm doing it for somebody else or to look good or to, you know, try and play some game, I mean, that's where I've always gotten into trouble. Because like there's no deal, there's no amount of money, there's no stuff that's enough to like fill in the gaps in my heart if I'm not being true to myself, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
uh,
it's such a loaded question too, and I think now I find it a lot easier to answer it because I feel like just through experience you start to figure these things out. But especially in college, it's like you ask me this, I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But it's like,
well,
okay, it's a remeasuring process, and I think especially looking back, I just wish I had asked this question so much earlier and started doing that type of reflection of at least just noting it. And even if you don't have the answer, starting the conversation is so much better than punting it down the long.
yeah, like I said, a lot of what we're trying to do here, apart from all the technical stuff, is to try and have some amount of self-knowledge,
Yeah,
because that will help like figure out what you want to do, and it'll frankly help you get the job. Because like when you roll into the internship, like one of the folks we had on, Jillian, was actually a fifth year, fourth year analyst or associate, or whatever the hell they call them now. And she said, you just all apart from all the other stuff, you need to have a crisp story about yourself,
yep,
which
yep.
is like so true and so hard. Huh.
Yeah, it's actually incredible. And I mean, the best performers are the ones who get that one down because it's so much easier to create a connection with someone and understand, okay, what's important, what's not. Okay, they feel very confident here. I trust them already. First
Right,
impression is everything.
right. So like our final presentation, each of these guys is giving like a PowerPoint and a 5 minute presentation on their crisp story about themselves, basically.
I love
Um, yeah. So all right, we're up on the time, so I have two stupid questions left. Your favorite movie?
The Dark Knight.
Ooh, that's a good one. I think we had someone in the class. I don't know if it's any of these guys, but someone had that one. And then the last question is, one word, if you want to leave the students. So we got a bunch of guys here, and we got a bunch of more guys who are going to watch it back on replay. But one word you'd like to leave them with.
Consistency.
It's a good one. Very good. Thanks, man. Love you. It's been
No
awesome
problem.
chatting with you.
Thanks again, everyone. Have a great rest of your night.
All right.